Hello everyone, my name is Zoe Poucher, and today I will be talking about a review project that I worked on with doctors Tamminen, Caron, and Sweet. So because of the previously documented increase in qualitative research in sports psychology and the growing awareness of the need to ensure that qualitative studies are of high quality, researchers in the field have begun to focus on the ways to maintain rigor in qualitative research. To address the fact that many of the common terms of rigor are based on realist assumptions, researchers have suggested using different terms, like the ones listed here on the slide. The problem is that these new terms just sort of repackage the same ideas, and they're still based on those realist ontological assumptions. So replacing validity with trustworthiness without changing the assumptions of that term and then applying it as a measure of rigor to qualitative research doesn't actually do anything to address how those conducting research not based on post-positive assumptions should proceed. This ends up posing a challenge for qualitative researchers who are looking to demonstrate the strength of their work in ways that align with their paradigmatic assumptions. So Smith and McGannon suggest that techniques such as inter-rater reliability, which is meant to demonstrate the replicability of coding, should no longer be used as a way to judge non-post-positive research. They explain that not being worried about the reliability of a non-post-positive study is justified since reliability doesn't align with the purposes of many qualitative projects. The notion of methodological coherence is a really valuable way of thinking about issues of quality and rigor in qualitative research. The assessment of a study's quality rests on the alignment between the researcher's philosophical position and the various elements of a qualitative study. So some suggest that if a researcher's philosophical position does not align or fit with their research question, the rigor of the study is compromised. So in addition to alignment between a research question and a paradigmatic position, when all other aspects of a research study, from modes of data analysis to choices about which methodology to implement, are informed by a researcher's paradigmatic position, a study is considered to be methodologically coherent. Based on these ongoing discussions about rigor and coherence in qualitative research, we conducted a study examining the methodological coherence of qualitative sports psychology research articles. We sought to describe the characteristics of qualitative sports psych articles, appraise the methodological coherence of these articles, and analyze trends in paradigm use and methodological coherence across time. To do this, we conducted a focused mapping review of all qualitative sports psych articles published between 1987 and 2017 in 5 different journals. We searched each issue and volume from these journals and saved all of the qualitative sports psychology articles, which led us to include 710 papers in our review. In each of these 710 articles, we looked at a few things. For example, we looked to see if the authors stated their philosophical position, and we coded things like how data was collected and rigor was maintained. With this information, we then made a determination about whether the paper was methodologically coherent. In our review, we found that the number of published qualitative articles increased from 2 in 1987 to 60 in 2017, and that post-positivism was the most common philosophical position, while pragmatism was the least common. We found that authors explicitly stated their position in 29% of the articles, and significant differences were found when examining the extent to which the philosophical position was stated or not within each paradigm. For example, post-positive positions were most often implied, compared to pragmatist articles, which all included a statement of paradigmatic positioning. Additionally, only 4% of all articles were identified as not methodologically coherent. Among the articles that we reviewed, the main indicator of an incoherent study was the use of post-positive language in articles that stated adopting a constructivist or constructionist position. The quotes on the slide here are examples from studies that stated working from a relativist position, but as you can see, the language is very reflective of a realist one. We found that the use of different paradigms for qualitative inquiry is flourishing in sports psychology. Trends in the adoption of different paradigms may reflect the influence of editors and journals who have been increasingly more accepting of novel paradigmatic and methodological approaches. We found that most articles reflected post-positive or critical realist assumptions, and that articles identified as post-positivist were the least likely to include an explicit statement of their philosophical position. So it may be that because post-positivism has been the dominant approach in the field for such a long time, authors operating from this position may not have had to explicitly state the assumptions underlying their research. On the other hand, researchers conducting studies from a relativist position may have been required to explicitly state their assumptions in order to have their work be understood. In the future, there may be greater attention devoted to explicit statements of paradigmatic positioning in qualitative research in sports psychology. So, for example, journals like JASP now require authors of qualitative studies to explicitly state their position. So we anticipate that this requirement will likely have a large impact on the number of published articles with a stated paradigm moving forward. This requirement helps to address issues of coherence, as it requires researchers submitting qualitative studies to consider how philosophical assumptions influence their research choices, and to demonstrate how their assumptions align with their approach to data collection, analysis, and so on. On the flip side, this may also result in methodologically incoherent articles, because researchers who are unfamiliar with the epistemological and ontological ideas may not fully understand the complexity of these topics, and as a consequence, may use language to describe the use of research techniques that don't align with their stated philosophical stance. What was really encouraging from this study was that only 4% of the reviewed articles were identified as incoherent. The main issue leading to articles being identified as incoherent was the use of conflicting language throughout the articles that seemed to conflate realist and relativist positions. Based on our review, we propose the following suggestions to help researchers strengthen their studies and to improve the overall coherence of their work. First, do not shy away from explicitly stating your position, as this process can really help you to think through the methodological decisions you'll make when conducting a study. To achieve a coherent study, researchers must demonstrate that the approach they have chosen is the best approach to answer their research question, and that their approach aligns with their philosophical position. We also encourage everyone to seek out more training about the philosophy of knowledge and the assumptions underlying all forms of inquiry. Through these approaches, we encourage researchers to consider and appreciate the variety of ways in which knowledge can be generated and contribute to understanding people's experiences in sport. Thank you. I appreciate your time. There's more information online. The paper is openly available. And here are some potentially helpful resources if you're interested in learning more.